Vedi? Ok, siamo live, mi dai conferma? Yes, I think we are. Okay, so I've just done one of the nativity art pills right now, and I'm going to do that in English now as well. So welcome everyone. For those who haven't seen this series before, I'm doing a series both in Italian and English about the Advent, following Saint Luke's Gospel. I chosen Luke because as a non-Jew, he had more kind of an historical approach, and he has a lot of details, and it's quite interesting to read the events that are right before the nativity of Jesus Christ. The series will go on for about 10 days, so we'll finish around mid-December, and then the last one will be about the nativity in art. And all these series are completely free. There will be 10, 15 minutes short talk where I'll be explaining a masterpiece. I'll be talking about my masterpiece in the mostly Renaissance art, European art. Today we read the first four lines of the Gospel of Luke. Today we'll follow the events of the of Zacharias and the angels. So this series can be watched free on our group on Facebook and on the YouTube channel. You can subscribe if you want, and also on our live on our Declan Tour live page. Let me just get to Google Maps. We are in Florence because today we will be talking about the Cappella Tornabuoni, the Tornabuoni Chapel. Tornabuoni were one of the wealthiest family in Renaissance Florence. They were bankers involved with the banking operations of the Medici family, which, they were basically the rulers of Florence during the late 1400s. At that time, Lorenzo Magnifico, Lawrence the Magnificent, was basically the lord of Florence and was a patron of art, one of the main figures who was able to support and to give a fundamental boost to the Renaissance. Now, following St. Luke, we saw the other day that on the ceiling of the Cappella Tornabuoni in the Basilica of Santa Maria Novella, just right outside of the train station of Florence, which is named after this Middle-Age church, there is a ceiling with four evangelists, amongst them St. Luke, that we can see here, painted by Domenico Ghirlandaio, was one of the artists who had just finished painting some of the scenes on the walls of the Sistine Chapel in Rome around 1580, 1582. And to learn how he came to paint this magnificent chapel, which is right beside the main altar. So this is Florence here. You might recognize it. Let me just zoom out a little bit. You might recognize the Duomo down here, the Palazzo Vecchio, and the historical center of Florence. Right, the train station there, right across the road, there is the Church of Santa Maria Novella with a beautiful facade designed in the 1400 by Leon Battista Alberti, one of the early architects of Renaissance. This facade is a masterpiece of Renaissance art and style. And then attached to it is a convent of the Dominican monks, which are basically the order in charge of the correctness of theology. Hence, they were in charge of the Inquisition. Now, they were very strict in following the Theologia Scholastica, the scholastic theology, so St. Thomas and all that Middle Age theology. And they were quite, they paid a lot of attention on whatever was painted on this main chapel. Now, the chapels back then could be purchased by private private rich owners, and they were the ones sponsoring the decorations, like a sort of sponsorship, like, exactly like, you know, the Coca-Cola company. I'm not affiliated with Coca-Cola, but like a giant, you know, retailer or a giant company sponsors arts, or sponsors a restoration, or sponsors um, uh, the Olympics, for example. I was making that example there. Anyway, the just to be sure, I don't even drink soft drinks. I don't believe in soft drinks. So um, the chapel was bought by the Ricci family in the 1300s, who had Orcagna, a middle-aged artist, paint the chapel. The chapel was in a derelict state by the beginning of 1400s and mid 1400s. So the Ricci didn't venture so well then. So what happened is that this chapel was sold to the family Sassetti. Francesco Sassetti asked to Domenico Ghirlandaio and his workshop, which was one of the most important in Florence at the time, to paint the episodes of the life of St. Francis in this chapel. The Dominicans, which are like a rival order, they said, no way, you have to paint something related with San Dominicus or with our saints, which, you know, we have plenty, and not with the Franciscans. The Franciscans, they have their own churches and their own saints. We have our own, or it has to be something related with our Lord. So the Sassetti eventually moved to another church, the Cappella di Santa Trinita, which was actually frescoed by Ghirlandaio, is considered Ghirlandaio masterpiece. But Ghirlandaio didn't lose this job. He was actually able to decorate this chapel for this man here, Giovanni Tornabuoni, whose portrait is here on the left, on the side of the window, on the altar window, which is here. So he asked in 1485. So Ghirlandaio was just came back the year before from Rome, and just got in his workshop a young promising talent, Michelangelo Buonarroti. So the young Michelangelo was 14 or 15 when he entered the workshop of Ghirlandaio. He did, and so he works on this fresco. He worked on this wall as well as a young apprentice, and he was so gifted that Giorgio Vasari tells us. Giorgio Vasari is this art historian of the 1500s. Tells us that Ghirlandaio was jealous and kicked him out because he used to draw over the masters and changing the master's design, which was a great offense. And on the return, Michelangelo was convinced that Ghirlandaio was selling his own drawings, Michelangelo's drawings, as his own. So the things didn't go down very well. Then Michelangelo later on entered the academy that the Medici had created in the convent of San Marco, and became the famous sculptor and painter that we all know. Anyway, Giovanni Tornabuoni decided to paint the life of the saint of his name. In fact, is Saint John the Baptist, and on the opposite wall, the life, or the episode of the life of the Virgin Mary, because Mary is pivotal in the, of course. So these are the episodes of the life of Mary, is pivotal in the theological definition of the original sin, of the Immaculate Conception, all this concept that we'll explore in the coming days. But we now focus on only one fresco. We'll talk for about 5-10 minutes only on this fresco here, the bottom one on the right, which is the beginning of the stories of the life of John. Then we will see them in the next episode tomorrow. I got the gospel here on King James Bible, and I'll be reading it. I won't be reading it to preach anyone. It's not a religious thing at all. It just had history, but because the facts depicted are precisely described by Luke, I think it's useful to just read the source rather than, try to summarize and make it up. I won't read it all. It's only like a few lines, so don't worry. There was, in the days of Herod, King Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless. And they had no child, because that Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years. So for a Jew at that time, the having no children was like a curse, was like God didn't like you, because of course if you are religious and respect God's laws, you will be prosperous, you will have children, you will be wealthy and successful. But this wasn't the case. I mean, he was a respected priest, but he didn't have no children. So, and it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his house, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. So all the other college was outside, and he went inside the temple alone, according to the custom of and the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. So we're just outside praying. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense, which we have here. So here you see, this is the detail of the fresco, the bottom right of this large wall in the main chapel of the Church of Santa Maria Novella. You have in the center the angel pointing the finger at Zacharias, which is there with the sprinkler, with the thing for the incense burner, flicking it in the air. And right, Ghirlandaio captured the moments when he's halfway up in the air, the incense burner, and he's just interrupted. He turned around. In fact, he was doing something else, and he turns his face. You see how much realism it comes in this scene. It's very theatrical, and the archangel Gabriel, walking in. Let's go back to the Bible, the Gospel. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. So he gave precise instruction. Your wife is going to be a child, you're going to have a child, you're going to name him John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice on his birth. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink. And he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God. And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And Zacharias said unto the angel, of course, he is shocked. You could see, sorry, wrong click. You could see here, this is a different pictures, is a bit more detail of the center. You could see he's shocked. He's just there. He's speechless. He doesn't know what to say. And so he doesn't really believe all that, because he says, whereby shall I know this? For I am an old man, and my wife well stricken in years. So he said, we're old. We are now out of this thing of children. And the angel answered, said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, and I am sent to speak unto thee, and to shew these things glad tidings, and to shew thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb, and not able to speak until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. I apologize for my pronunciation. This is really hard for me. I guess it's 17th century English, but it's beautiful. I chose this one because it sounds really, really beautiful. The angel is upset. It punishes him because he doesn't believe. The same thing that happened to Moses, the same things that happen all the time. If you do not believe, God punishes you. You have to believe. It's all about faith. So, and again, I'm not preaching you. I'm just trying to make understand what this means. And there's the finger there, finger that the mothers used to tell off the children. So it's very simple. This is exactly what Vasari meant when he says that spirito di prontezza, that kind of easiness that the Renaissance artists had in represent something very deep, something very precise in a very simple way. You get the finger to him, announce and say, you shall be dumb. You won't be able to speak to anyone now until your wife gives a child, because you didn't believe. Now, this scene is framed by this marvelous architecture. Is of course a recent remind of the journey that the painter Ghirlandaio, who worked in this chapel with his two brothers, and also his brother-in-law, and of course a number of other young pupils, amongst them, as I said, Michelangelo. And you could see these bas reliefs and this magnificent triumphal arch and these apse, which reminds of the churches of Rome and the marbles of Rome that he saw in during his stay in Rome. He stayed for a couple of years in Rome working in the Sistine Chapel. And the Roman bas reliefs, inspired, of course, by the triumphal arches, the Arch of Constantine, and the other monuments he had the chance to see there. Of course, all in this beautiful bright red. All this is, of course, the way in the Renaissance they represented the antiquity, and because the only ancient world they knew was the Roman world, because it was there. And then the altar as well is a beautiful carved altar that reminds us of the Roman marble bas reliefs with the shell, which of course is a symbol of pilgrimage, is also a symbol of rebirth and baptism. So we have then a number of people here. These are well-known contemporaries, so they are billionaires and rich of their time. So the first one, of course, next to it is Giovanni Tornabuoni, then Leonardo Tornabuoni, and the others members of the Medici bank legacy. So they were all involved in the Medici banking, the group of chaps on the right, all dressed up as contemporaries. They were very well recognized. So putting them inside a religious episode, and a very important one, was basically of course, it wasn't considered blasphemy. It was actually a way to endorse themselves and celebrate themselves in the face of the common people, because they were right next to the divinity, the religious episode that they worshipped. And so these people wanted to be worshipped as well as the people worshipped in the altar. Although this was behind the main altar, it was the most important place in the entire church, because that's where the Dominicans sat and sang. So it was the place where only when only the most important and wealthiest family could afford to be represented. We switch now to the details, because we have on the left, so the first one, as I said, is Tornabuoni. There's another group of people, including a father of the convent of San Lorenzo, and other characters of the first time. These four heads here, but I switch picture because we can see them all. Here on the bottom left, these four here, they are all philosophers and writers and poets and humanists. So they were basically the think tank of the Florentine Renaissance. So first, from the left, we have Marsilio Ficino, the philosopher, and then we have Cristoforo Landino. We have then Agnolo Poliziano and Gabriele De Benci. So we have, Poliziano was a poet, so we have some of the most important philosophers and men of letters of the time. The inscriptions actually on the top of the altar right here, Sicut incensum, this is the gospel itself in Latin. And then on the right, we have on this archway a Latin sentence by Poliziano, which says, Quo pulcherrima civitas, what a beautiful city Florence has become. And it celebrates the fact that Florence is the crib of art and culture, and it shines in splendor thanks to the bankers, basically, because of course, with no money, there's no splendor to be paid, or gold to be purchased, or painted to be paid. So that's the bottom line here. Thanks to the bankers, which morally and economically, as today, back in the 1400s, it wasn't much difference. People didn't like bankers as people don't like. I apologize if there's anyone involved in the banking, but the general vision is that. But it's true that without bankers, nothing gets done. And so it's thanks to the banking families that all this wealth arrived in Florence. You have to think that Florence was a relatively extremely small city at that time. He had probably some 30,000 inhabitants when, these masters were working with so many geniuses were born. So in such a small population, so many geniuses and artists and creative people, being born or working, it's really, truly amazing. The Medici and the banking were involved with this operation all over Europe. So it was really, they were really the most important bankers in the world. Now here on the right, we have another group of gentlemen, all as well involved with the banking. Probably the portraits of the artists, but some art historians don't believe that, because on the opposite wall also there's the same portrait, so they might not be. It's just like they're quite more general faces, although they represent, especially the youngsters, the ones that are about to become, is the younger generation, including Alessandro de' Medici, the younger generation of bankers that will take then the rule. You see, they have objects in their hand, they have status symbols, they are very nicely dressed. And then women at the back, they symbolize also, they're very nicely dressed, they're very beautiful, of course. They are a nice contour to this display of wealth and of the jet set of the Florentine banking. Now, next tomorrow I'll do another one. I'll do them around this time, and it's around 11 in Rome at night, and so it's afternoon in the US. It's almost it's early morning in Australia and in the Far East. I have people following from all over the world, so I'm really glad about that. So this is my Advent calendar. It'll only be another. I'll do 10 episodes in total. We finish with the Nativity around the 15th of December. Thank you very much. Stay tuned, and then these videos will be available on YouTube, on the Facebook group, and also on the website. And in the coming weeks, I'll be publishing the videos again following to this Christmas. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.